Hello, so for this lesson, we are going to go over inscribed quadrilaterals. So the last lesson was on inscribed right triangles. This one is on inscribed quadrilaterals. So one thing I want to point out is before you watch this video and go through these practice problems, I highly recommend going through and doing this solving systems of equations by elimination worksheet. I did hand this one out in class. The answers are posted online, so definitely go through that. Make sure you know how to do these because you're going to have to use this skill while you do this topic. All right? So let's go ahead and we will get started. So the big idea for this lesson is that opposite angles in an inscribed quadrilateral are supplementary. So what that means, when things are supplementary, that means that they add up to 180. All right, so maybe we can even put that there. So for example, if we're looking at this quadrilateral here, the opposite angles would be D and B. And that would mean that angle D plus angle B equals 180 degrees. And then we have A and C. Angle A plus angle C equals 180 degrees. So you're going to use this idea throughout this topic. So for number one, it says use the diagram to answer the following questions. What is the angle opposite angle G? So if we're looking at angle G, that's this guy right here. The angle opposite him is going to be angle E. Now it says set up and solve for Y. Well, we know that angle G and angle E are supplementary, which means that when you add them up, you get 180. So you get Y plus 120 equals 180. So when you solve this, you end up getting Y equals 60. So the next one, what angle is opposite angle D? So opposite angle D, we get angle F. So we know that these two angles are going to be supplementary. So we can say Z. Oh, actually I didn't answer the question. The angle opposite angle D is F. And we can set up our equation. Angle Z plus 80 is going to equal 180. So we get Z equals 100. All right, next one. Now, as you can see, these are going to start to get a little bit more complicated. For this first one, it says, what angle is opposite angle I? Opposite angle I, we get angle E. Now it says set up and solve for X. So we know that 7X plus 5X need to equal 180. Now one big thing I want to just kind of warn you against, make sure you're not setting these equal to each other. I does not necessarily equal E. They could, but what we do know is that they are supplementary. So you have to add them up, set it equal to 180. So we do that, and we end up with 12X equals 180, and we get X equals 15. So that's our solve for X. Then it says, what angle is opposite angle K? So if we look at angle K, the angle opposite is angle N. Set up and solve for Y. Again, they're supplementary. We're going to do 2y plus 1 plus 6y equals 180. I got 8y plus 1 equals 180. 8y equals 179. So then you do 179 divided by 8. And I got 22.3. All right, next we have example 3. So for one thing, for 3A here, I actually want you to change this. Instead of having it say arc BCD, it should really just say arc BD. Arc BCD implies that it's a major arc. It's actually a minor arc they're referring to, so you could go ahead and change that to just arc BD. It says, given that the measure of arc BD is 136 degrees, so that means that this guy here is 136 degrees. What is the measure of DAB? So if you recall from the previous lesson, we learned that inscribed angles are half the measure of their intercepted arc. So in this case, our intercepted arc is 136 degrees, so half of that is going to be 68. So we could say the measure of angle DAB equals 68 degrees. Next, if AC is the diameter, what angles measure 90 degrees? So, another thing we learned last lesson was that when we have a diameter, these intercepted arcs here, they make 180, which then makes our inscribed angle 90. So we actually have two 90-degree angles here. Angles D and angle B are going to be 90 degrees. Now it says to set up and solve for x. Well, you already know x is going to equal 90. Then it says set up and solve for y. Well, guess what? Y is going to equal 90. So one thing I want to do too is I would like to go ahead and solve for angle C, or solve for Z. So we know that this angle plus this angle need to give us 180. Angle A was 68 degrees, so we can do 68 plus Z needs to give us 180. So we now know that Z is equal to 112. So for example 4, use the diagram to answer the following questions. What angle is opposite angle DCB? So if we're looking at angle DCB, the angle opposite is going to be this angle A here. So it says set up and solve for x. So we know that x plus 115 need to give us 180. When you solve for x, you should get 65 degrees. Now it says, what angle is opposite angle ABC? So if we look at angle ABC, the angle opposite is going to be angle D. Now they say go ahead, set up and solve for y. So in this case, they actually told us that these angles are congruent. So this is also going to be equal to y degrees. So we could say y plus y gives us 180. 2y equals 180, so y equals 90. Awesome. All right. Now this next part is really where I want to make sure that you have completed that elimination worksheet. If you haven't, please pause the video, go do a couple of those, because if you're kind of unsure, not really comfortable with those kinds of problems, these ones are going to feel pretty overwhelming. So definitely make sure you go back and know how to do those. So for example 5, it says solve for x and y. So let's go ahead. We're just going to set these up the same way we've been doing. If we're looking at this picture, we know that angle B and angle D go together. And angle A, that wasn't supposed to be an orange. And angle A and angle C go together. So we know that these angles are meant to be supplementary. So we'll go ahead, let's do A and C first. We know that 4x plus y plus 119 need to give us 180 because they are supplementary. Then over here, we've got 2x plus 3y plus 117 gives us 180. So now we're going to go ahead and get these in what we call standard form. What that means is that you have x plus y equals a number. So for all of these kinds of problems, we need to get this number over here. So all we really have to do is subtract it out. So we're going to do 180 minus 119. So when you do that, I got 61. And over here when I did that, I got 63. So now, when I look at this and I'm trying to solve by elimination, I need to make sure that I multiply by something that is going to help me cancel out. So what I'm going to do here is I look at this, I'm like, you know what, I want to multiply this guy by -2. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply this guy by -2 and rewrite him underneath the other guy. So let's go ahead, multiply, I get -4x minus 6y minus 126. All right, so now you can go ahead and do the cancellation. The x's cancel, and I get a minus 5y equals -65, which gives me y equals 13. Now, do not stop here, right? This says solve for x and y, and we're only halfway done with the problem. So we need to go through and plug this y value in so that we can solve for x. So what you can do is you could go back and plug into either. You really can plug into any of these, but I would say the easiest would be to plug into this guy or to plug into this guy. So I ended up plugging in to this one right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do 2 times x plus 3 times my y value, which was 13, equals 63. And I go ahead and do 3 times 13, and I get 39. So when I subtract that out, I end up getting 2x equals 24, x equals 12. So the solution here would be 12, 13. And that's how a lot of these are written. You do x, y. Now, these other problems, they might ask you to add x and y or multiply x and y. If you recall, the first test you had this semester, you had, I believe they asked for the sum or the product of x and y, and you had to make sure that you took your answer and kind of did something with them. All right, next one. So this one says find the product of x and y. So what we're going to do is we're first going to solve for x and y like we just did, and then we're going to multiply them because product means multiply. So let's go ahead and set it up. We know A and C go together, and we know that D and B go together. So let's go ahead, go from there. I'm going to say 4x plus y plus 178 equals 180. And x minus y plus 177 equals 180. So then we can go ahead and solve. I guess I shouldn't say solve. We have to get it in standard form first. So I got 4x plus y equals 2, and x minus y equals 3. Now looking at this, I need to use elimination on these guys. This guy is going to cancel right away with this guy, so I don't even have to multiply by anything. All I need to do is line them up. So we've got 4x plus y equals 2, x minus y equals 3. These y's are going to automatically cancel, and I get 5x equals 5. So we get x equals 1. Now again, I'm not done. I got to make sure I go plug that back in. So I'll plug it in to this second one here. I'll do 1 minus y equals 3, minus 1 minus 1, negative y equals 2, y equals -2. So the solution is 1, -2. But then they ask me for the product. So my product here is simply -2. So that answers the question. All right, last one. Find the sum of x and y. So if you recall, sum means to add. So we're going to go ahead, find x and y, and then add our answers together. B and D go together. A and C go together. We know they're supplementary, so we add them up, set them equal to 180, and solve. So we can do 4x minus y, plus 160 equals 180, and -2x minus 2y plus 170 equals 180. So we get 4x minus y equals 20, and -2x minus 2y equals 10. So I look here, nothing's going to cancel out right away, but I think that this x would be pretty easy to cancel out with this x. All I need to do is multiply these guys by 2. So I'm just going to rewrite my first equation, and I'm going to go through and multiply this 2 out. So I get -4x minus 4y equals 20. So when I go through, my x's cancel. I get a -5y equals 40. Y is going to equal -8. So now I need to plug back into one of my equations. I'll plug into this guy, this first one. I'm going to do 4x minus -8 equals 20. So we get 4x plus 8 equals 20. 4x equals 12. X is going to equal 3. So they asked for the sum of x and y, so I'm going to do -8 plus 3 minus 5 is my answer. If I simply asked for you to solve for x and y, you would just give me 3, -8.